Welcome to the King Street Cinema podcast. My name's Andy, joined as ever by James. Hello, James.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm okay, yeah.
Yeah, so this is the second of our October episodes.
Yes.
A few films we're focusing on this episode, starting with a couple of, I suppose they could both be classed as comedy horrors, yeah?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is what they are.
Yes,
surely.
exactly. Yeah, the first one, 40th anniversary.
Yeah.
Second one, 20th anniversary.
Yeah.
So 40 years ago, this year, Ghostbusters.
Yes.
Worldwide phenomenon.
Yeah.
I think it's a movie that kind of no one really saw coming either. Fairly big budget, but they didn't expect the success that it had.
Yeah, I think that's certainly the way that they make it out nowadays, and I'm sure it was at the time. The documentary that I'm sure everybody has seen,
Cleaning Up the Town. You showed a couple of years ago.
Yeah, sure. That very much makes the case that they didn't think it was going to do well.
Yeah. They
were like, yeah, it might do okay or whatever, but they weren't expecting it to be a hit. No one was, I guess.
Yeah. So.
But it was.
Written by Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, and the director Ivan Reitman.
Yes.
Dan Aykroyd wrote something like a 300-page script to start with.
Well, it is certainly Aykroyd's creation, as in like the beginnings of it, the idea of this guys sort of like say cleaning up the town, as they're basically like pest control but for ghosts, kind of thing. That was very much his original idea, but yeah. He's a bit crazy.
And he was kind of, I was about to say, because he wrote this massive script.
He needs a bit of like reining in, basically.
Because when you look at his previous, he co-wrote Blues Brothers as well.
Absolutely.
Which is a long film, crazy.
Yeah.
And I imagine it was much the same with that.
Did it say Landis worked on this? Did he work on?
No, but the same thing happened. I think Landis did.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, he railed him in.
So, because, like you say, Dan Aykroyd has the idea for Blues Brothers, bam, and then, director, who they want him to work on it, don't they? And he comes along and he goes, right, we need to rewrite the script, basically.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that's what happened.
Yeah.
Ghostbusters, they got Harold Ramis in, who had, by this point, written Animal House. And he'd worked with Ivan Reitman on Stripes.
Certainly had.
Did Ivan Reitman do Stripes?
He did.
Yeah,
that was a film previous.
to
I think so, as far as Ivan Reitman directing and producing. And
by then had Harold Ramis done the first Vacation as well by 84?
Yeah, he had. So it's the year previous you had Vacation.
Yeah.
And these were all him writing as well. I mean, you have Caddyshack as well. Don't forget.
Yeah. But all comedy backgrounds.
Absolutely.
Whereas this movie is a comedy, but it's got the supernatural horror element as well.
Yeah.
Big influence from the older films like Ghost Breakers, was it? The Bob Hope film?
Yes.
And films like that. It's a throwback to these almost screwball 40s, 50s horror comedies. You could even say the Abbott and Costello monster movies.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was a comeback. I imagine the people behind this film grew up watching.
Yeah.
Before our time, for us, I mean, I was 2 or 3 when this movie came out. Big part of growing up.
Sure.
And maybe it's one of the reasons I got into horror, watching this film so young.
You might be. For me personally, I feel like when I saw this, there were a few things kicking around as well at the same time. For like not necessarily comedy horror movies, but certainly some sort of like older horror stuff. So it very much wasn't like, I don't think of it as being like the first like scary thing that I ever saw, but I can definitely tell you that it did scare me.
Which bit scared you? Because there was one bit that scared me.
Oh, there's probably a couple, but certainly the bit which got to be the most famous scary scene, really, with the dogs coming out of the sofa, when they get Sigourney Weaver. I mean, I thought that was terrifying. Yeah, it still is scary. I think it still is.
Well, for me, it was right at the very beginning in the library.
Oh,
the old woman that jumps out.
Oh, absolutely. That was really crazy scary.
That literally petrified me as a kid. And when I watched the video, I'd fast forward, get past that.
That's so weird.
I can remember vividly. I've got two things out of this first. And being in cinema, you can't fast forward it, so you got to sit through it.
Yeah.
My brother said he got it just past the video, so I would skip it.
Yeah.
And back in the days of we had to press play, we didn't have a remote. It was before that. So I put the video in, I pressed play, and he put it just before.
Yeah.
So it came out and got
prankster.
me. Yeah, bugger. We don't speak. We haven't spoken since.
Yeah.
And also I can remember a friend of mine came round after school to watch it. I was too scared to watch the beginning, and he was too scared to watch the end. So we just watched the middle of the film,
right?
Because we loved it. I was very young. This is primary school.
Oh yeah, well,
I wasn't like sixth form.
Yeah, like yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first time that I saw it, like my memories, this is so long ago, obviously for us. So my memories kind of, I don't know if this is true or not, but the way I always have it in my head is when I first saw it, I don't see the beginning bit, not because I was too scared or whatever. It was on TV, and I so that part I remember seeing later and being really scared of and doing exactly the same thing as you, not really being able to watch it, just having to fast forward past it. But the first time I ever saw it, because it was on TV, was further into the movie. And that this bit that I'm talking about with Zool and stuff, like the dog creatures coming out and taking over Sigourney Weaver. That was the bit that I remember being like, I couldn't even be in the room with it, sort of thing. Like I just remember like running out of the room because I was so scared.
And another thing I vividly remember is I had it recorded off TV, and I watched it a lot when it was on TV. But I eventually bought the video of it, and there was a lot of stuff that was always cut out of TV. One version I remember seeing during the day, and you didn't see the ghost jump out. You didn't see the Zool chair bit, and then there was a lot of the sexual humour and swearing was taken because the film is now a 12, isn't it?
Yes,
and it's not. And it's not for scary reasons.
No,
it's for basically language and sexual themes.
Absolutely.
I think.
So we must have taped it that time I'm talking about. We must have taped it off the TV too, because I saw it many times later and didn't see these bits that you're talking about because they weren't in it.
Yeah.
Even when it was shown later on in the evening on TV, there's one bit especially which they never showed on television, which when I ended up seeing it probably on DVD years later, and going, oh, I'd never seen this scene before.
Was that involving Ray?
Yes.
Yeah. Should we? No, we don't want to.
No, just leave it. There is a scene that's clearly not for kids.
Yeah. Well, this is another thing I want to discuss because growing up, most kids loved this film. There was a cartoon came out of it.
Yeah.
5 years later, which seemed like forever later, there was a sequel. Cartoon series ran for years. Comic books, everything, toys. And I certainly don't think that was the intention of this movie.
No.
But it's not when you watch it now. I mean, if I had kids, gladly watch because the ruder stuff they wouldn't pick up on.
No.
There's a bit of swearing, but no effing and jeffing.
True.
Milder swear words, but there's certain things in it like they're all drinking all the time and smoking. And the Bill Murray walking about with a hip flask and. But it was intended to be. I think they wanted it to be family friendly. But in the way that maybe Gremlins is, it's got that darker side.
Sure, I don't know though. It's a weird one. This is why I'm guessing it worked as well as it did, because it's clearly at the offset. If you're a grown up, you can see all the stuff that's there that are for grown ups. But it's made in a way that suggests more of a universal appeal.
Yeah.
Which these guys aren't. This wasn't their background. Their background was late night television or films which were quite raunchy. Yeah, comedy. So their thing wasn't that. They weren't.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't.
I suppose he was a bit rude as well. But I mean, but do you know? But
it wasn't aimed. If it had been aimed at kids, you'd have got a film more like Casper. Or even.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it works, and that's why when it came out. We all loved it so much because it wasn't. I'm not saying it wasn't kid friendly. We liked it because it was edgier than the other kids stuff we were watching.
Sure, but this is why I don't think it was a kid. This is why I don't think it is a kids thing. I'm not saying that kids can't enjoy it because we all did as kids, and kids should still enjoy it today. I'm very much not in favour of this being something that shouldn't be shown to children or to whatever young people. But I don't know. I don't want to talk like an old person, say, it was different then than it is now, and people were too sensitive now. But there is a bit to that, because in the 80s there were loads of things that were clearly aimed at a more universal appeal for older people and younger people that were a bit darker. I mean, we're going to talk about one in a bit as well, which which again, like, it's a very different thing to this. But shows of the time, shows at that time were clearly aimed. They wanted more of a broader, audience.
Well, I do think that when they made this, they didn't want to lose their Saturday Night Live fans, SCTV fans, and this film was so influential for me as a kid that it helped get me into horror, like I say. But I loved Dan Aykroyd, I loved Bill Murray, and it made me. I remember pre-internet finding out about these actors, going out and buying video cassettes of Saturday Night Live and watching episodes of Saturday Night Live. It got me into films like Trading Places. As a kid, comedy was my favourite genre, but not kids' comedies. They're all 15, and I still love that era of comedy. And looking back, okay, some of the jokes don't work now, and it's not because you can't do those jokes. It's just with age, sometimes not for value reasons, but some things that were funny, like years and years ago, slapstick was funnier than it is now.
Sure.
And I think things change a bit, and I'll watch something like Beverly Hills Cop, love it, but I won't laugh out loud like I used to when I was a kid. Right. And it's not because it's just certain things are funnier than they used to be. Right? And I do find that a bit with Ghostbusters, with some of the humour, but there's some great lines in it, and everything else about it is. I'm not saying it's a perfect film, but it's a very good one because there's so many different things in it.
I agree. I think it's a great film. For what it is. They would say the same thing, I'm sure, and probably do. I'm sure they do in the documentary about how it just sort of like everything just feels like it just fitted. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like these guys weren't like, this wasn't like their first time out the gate. They'd made stuff before, and it's when you watch this in comparison to the stuff they made before, even though it's good, there are certain elements to this movie that are just like, that's incredibly well put together scene or whatever. And you go, that works incredibly well. And you go, but why? Like, why does it? And it's almost, you can't really explain it necessarily. It just works. Yeah. It's just a film that, for what it is it just works, right? Yeah. All the bits.
And then also, they've built their way to making this movie. They're basically own TV. They've done what they can with late night TV. Very successful and still influential to this day through that. Sure. Then you've got Ivan Reitman, who had a few hit movies. He'd done Animal House, did he not, as well? No, John Landis done that. Yeah. Ivan Reitman done Stripes. Yeah. Working with Bill Murray, and they got Bill Murray in this. That was a massive hit.
Meatballs in Canada, the Canadian film Meatballs.
Meatballs, that was so. We went from Meatballs to Stripes,
and there might be one or two somewhere in there, but those were the two. But
Stripes is almost forgotten. In America, that was a massive hit.
Yeah, it was a huge hit.
And basically after that, they would give them more money and give them more freedom.
Absolutely.
And then they made this, and Aykroyd coming in from critical acclaim from the Blues Brothers, films like Trading Places, which I mentioned. Just building and building. Harold Ramis was in Stripes, but he'd written others, and then you've got Rick Moranis. Sigourney Weaver off the back of Aliens. That's Alien by that point, We've done a lot of stuff. And they say it all came together, but if you've seen the documentary and read about it, Eddie Murphy was supposed to be in it. It was written for John Belushi, who passed away. John Candy was supposed to play the Rick Moranis character, and the weird story of that, he didn't do it because he wanted to put a German accent on. And there's all these weird. He's still in the music video.
It's really weird, isn't it?
But they all got on because he did that other. And there was something. This film could have been. When they filmed it, it had two different titles. So they didn't know if they could get the name Ghostbusters because there was a TV series called that before. So when they put the sign on the firehouse and stuff, they shot it twice with a different name. And then even Bill Murray. Apparently, they didn't even know if he was going to show up. Through the friendship, he said he'd do the movie, and they didn't know till the first day of shooting. Which is insane.
I mean, yes, I suppose in the sense of like when you think about from a professional point of view, but it very much sort of fits in with like the kind of their background, the way that it was then in the early 80s. It was very sort of a crazy time and very much a sort of free time for them in the sense of like they could pretty much they probably felt very, very capable of just doing whatever they wanted. And if Bill Murray had not done it, they would have had no problem with finding, I'm sure, somebody else to do it.
Yeah.
I know everyone loves Bill Murray. Bill Murray clearly became the focal point. And remember when it was trailered and everything, it was very much like get Bill Murray on the front, all the time. Like, but yeah, like you say, it was John Belushi. It was written. That character was certainly written for him, and he would have played it differently. And I think, interesting, because I'm such a big Belushi fan, I might have preferred it even more. I might have liked the film even more, but we'll never know. But yeah, that's I've always thought of that as being like, that was like Bill Murray's break in a way.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I mean, I'm not to say that he wouldn't have. I'm sure he would have gone on and still been a huge name. I'm sure, but that break in getting the opportunity to play that part,
it
at that
definitely
time
broke him into commercial movies.
Yeah.
And
all of them to an extent, but him more so.
Yeah. And mentioned John Belushi. Obviously, the Slimer character's a tribute to him.
Yeah.
There's a reference to the Animal House canteen scene, isn't it?
Yeah.
With that. And it proves how long this film was in post-production and stuff as well, because did he die in 82?
82. 81 82.
Yeah, and this came out in 84, so
Yeah.
but it probably delayed it with that. And I think it would have been a more adult film if it was him and Eddie Murphy.
Yeah.
At that time, I think it would have been raunchier is the word, or just more swears and stuff.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but of course, the whole thing for them, when you think of them, is it does feel a little toned down. Like you say, a little toned down for a broader audience. But I don't know if that was really intentional. I get the feeling that it wasn't.
No. There's like I said, there's the fair bit of swearing in it for that.
Absolutely.
But no F-bombs, and which was because this is the same year this was released as when PG-13 came in, so they didn't know about that. So I think that's a deliberate keep it, if they can keep it a PG, and also because of the budget, they wanted as many people as possible to see it. So I think it was reined in for those reasons. But it was still they didn't hold back on the scares, which certificate-wise doesn't matter.
Wouldn't have mattered.
So I think they went for it in that respect to get it more so adults can enjoy it.
Yeah, probably. I mean, horror fans at least for the scares, because I mean, obviously not everyone likes horror and likes being scared. I know weirdos, right? What's wrong with them? But it's true. Yeah. And with these guys' background, their background isn't in, like you said, there's not a horror background. So there would have been, I'm sure, a few people out there being like, I love them, but I don't like being scared. Yeah. But
because they're in it, I think that would have encouraged people to see it if it was not so it's that good mix, know. And for all the films of 1984, it was big. It wasn't the biggest film of the year.
No, but that was a big year for
blockbusters. It really was. But it's still so fun to remember. They're still making the films. I know they took a big break, but there was one came out last year, Frozen Empire, and I know someone who saw that in cinema 20 times.
That's incredible.
So that's probably half the box office. But it's still, they're not breaking records, but they're still making money. They're still doing. Its fan base is still there.
Yeah.
There's a culture to Ghostbusters group. Yeah. There might even be an Ipswich. I know there's culture because I know people involved, and it is that thing of, they rebooted it. There's still video games. I know they recently brought back Beverly Hills Cop, but it was a big film that year. But that's never been as big as over the years. Maintained its popularity.
The reputation of Beverly Hills Cop is not the same. Doesn't have the same weight as Ghostbusters, and of course that is because Ghostbusters is more of a, we said many times, more of a universal appeal. Yeah,
but I think if you look at it, Beverly Hills Cop might have made more money or very close to it.
I reckon it made more money.
Yeah,
I'm sure. Well, maybe I'm wrong about that, but I'd be very surprised if it didn't make more money, even though Ghostbusters was a huge hit. I think close to like 300 million box office. I'm sure
it was pretty much 300 million.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that I don't have the figures here right now, but I'm sure Beverly Hills Cop would have done similar, if not more.
Yeah, and that is that the reason why Eddie Murphy wasn't in Ghostbusters?
I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if he would have gone, look, I'm a star now.
Yeah,
and you're wanting me to play a supporting role.
Yeah,
and he'd be like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm a star.
Yeah. So if I'm assuming he was going to play Winston.
Yeah,
and that would have been a completely different
Sure.
But I think Ernie Hudson's brilliant in these movies. I will add that in all the films, and the character's built to become more in the later ones. I'd often forgotten, quite controversial, he was left out of the posters and stuff at the time.
Promo. He's hardly in the trailer. He doesn't come across. They don't show him as being a Ghostbuster. I don't think in the trailer.
But he isn't to start with. Is he? Comes in about halfway through the film.
Sure. But yes, on the poster and everything, it's just three guys.
Yeah.
And you could look at that as being a sort of a what's that about, eh?
Yeah, you could, but he comes in halfway through. He's almost like the audience, that character.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I like that.
And he doesn't believe in it either.
Yeah, he just wants the job. But Ernie Hudson wasn't a star then.
No.
So that might be another reason. I mean, it could be the reasons that we're all thinking, but who knows?
It was the 80s.
Yeah.
And but people have mentioned about the female characters in it and how they're not written very strongly and everything.
Janine's brilliant.
And then Howard Ramis does have a great line in the documentary, which I'm going to say not right, but he is going to, he was very honest about it, which was that at the time we were just guys writing for guys.
Yeah.
Just having fun writing things that we thought were funny, and we didn't think about that stuff.
Yeah. But at least he could admit that, as well, which he passed away a few years ago, but fairly recent interview, I'm guessing, when he said that.
Yeah.
But so it is a movie as well that I remember as kids, boys and girls enjoying.
Yeah.
And it was the sort of thing you acted out in the playground and stuff, which is great. Do kids still do that? I don't know.
Oh, sure they do.
Yeah, they must do. And we haven't mentioned Ray Parker Jr.
Well, indeed, yes.
Who,
great. Oh, Alan Bernstein. I mean, I can't forget Alan Bernstein either. The score is fantastic, as well as Parker's great singing.
And it is one of those that quite often is screened with an orchestra still.
Right.
Was it last Christmas in the Royal Albert Hall? They showed it with the orchestra.
There we go.
And and only one musician sued Ray Parker Jr. Do you remember that? Huey Lewis.
I think I've definitely heard that story before. What was the outcome of that?
Ray Parker Jr. was
paid?
But I've listened to I forget the name of something.
Yeah, I've heard the song
doesn't sound that much like
I've heard the song as well many years ago. I can't remember what it is right now. I completely forgot about that.
Yeah.
It's not that much.
It's not
that much from what I remember.
Coincidence.
Yeah.
Got to be. So Ghostbusters, we've talked about that for a while.
Yeah, showing on the 18th of October, obviously this month at 8:30, evening showing.
Yeah, the 18th,
Friday night after Star Wars.
Oh, you're showing Star Wars? What? I didn't realise
Star Wars: New Hope at 6, and then you come along for Ghostbusters. What a lovely evening.
Perfecto.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of that. I'm at work until 7. We'll see. But that's cool. And it is one that Ghostbusters you can watch over and over. But I'd love to hear from anybody who hasn't seen it before who goes along.
Yeah.
That would be amazing to see what they think. Because it is one of those, many of my favourite films. I would put, if I had to do a top 50 films, Ghostbusters would definitely be in it. It's one of my favourites.
Interesting. If I think of films from my childhood, certainly, it's right up there as a really important film that I saw very early on. Yeah.
But, I was far too young to have seen it in the cinema. I was born, but too young to see it in the cinema. Yeah. And it's one that I grew up watching on telly, and it's be nice to see it on the big screen. I think I saw it it must have been the 20th anniversary I saw it at the cinema. And I'll be along again, hopefully.
For the 40th.
For the 40th.
Wow.
Yes.
How about that?
Makes me feel old. But not as old as when I found out Shaun the Dead was 20 years old.
Yeah, well, that's interesting, isn't it?
Because,
because we obviously both remember seeing Shaun the Dead when it came out.
Yeah, I saw that on the big screen.
Yeah.
And I saw it because basically being a fan of Simon Pegg and Spaced.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, when I saw the trailers, I thought, this is just going to be a bit naff. Because we'd got films like Guest House Paradiso from the Bottom movie around that time, and with Nick Frost as well and Edgar Wright. It looked like it was just going to be the Spaced movie. Which it kind of is, but isn't.
Interesting, isn't it? Right, so I'm going to tell it's a bit of a crappy story, but whatever.
Let's go for it.
So I met Simon Pegg once, okay, and this was before.
You told me this, yes.
This was before Shaun the Dead existed, right? It was in 2001, late 2001. Spaced had finished, right? And we met him in a pub. We were going to a gig that, in fact, a friend of mine at the time, it was my friend's gig, and he was going along to it as well. So it was like, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah. But yeah, we were all obviously big fans of Spaced, and we asked him, is there going to be a third one? And he was, no, sort of not saying no outright, but sort of we're working on other things. And he wouldn't say what it was. And clearly, it was Shaun the Dead. And Shaun the Dead exists because of an episode of Spaced, of course. There is an episode of Spaced called Art, where Simon Pegg character has been up for like days and days, I think, playing Resident Evil, I'm pretty sure. And because he's been up for so long, he's kind of hallucinating. Yeah. And he's at an art gallery or something, and he starts thinking that people at the art gallery are zombies. Yeah. And and they turn into, I mean, we see them as zombies because we're seeing it through his eyes, and it's kind of like, so this is kind of like the beginnings of the idea for Shaun of the Dead. Basically. Yeah. They were very much like, we've got to do that, haven't we? We've got to make a zombie movie.
Yeah, and it done surprisingly well, but because it's a good film, I think, and so many other sort of knockoffs like Cockneys versus Zombies and stuff came out afterwards, that it's important to go back and watch this. I think if you're a fan of the comedy Zombies, to remember how good it is. Yeah.
It is good, isn't it?
It's very good.
It's extremely funny, and there's lots of stuff in it that is subtle comedy and subtle homage stuff to either zombie movies or British humour, because it's very British humour, isn't it? But that's that you miss many times. You watch it many times, and there's still stuff coming up that you go, I see that reference now, or I get that line now.
When I first saw it 20 years ago, I would have seen Night of the Living Dead several times before that, but I didn't pick up on the "I'm coming to get you, Barbara" reference.
Yeah, because it's the way he says it. Yeah, because he doesn't say it like in Night of the Living Dead, because he says, "We're coming to get you, Barbara," not "They're coming to get you, Barbara." Yeah, which so you would miss it if you weren't like as nerdy as they are.
Yeah, but it's not just sort of splatter humour. There is that in there, but what I think when I rewatched this recently, why I think it holds up is the characters and the relationships in the characters. It really works. We've all got a friend like Nick Frost in this, or had a friend like that growing up, and the he's in that job that he doesn't want to be in and going through the motions. The flatmate who is doing better than everybody, and then the parents are the mum. She's the most mumsy mum ever, and I've got a mum like that, or seen friends with a mum like that. Sure. And then the Bill Nighy is the stepdad. There's that relationship is really interesting. How they don't like each other, but anyway, I don't want to spoil it because there might be people who haven't seen it. Yeah. But for me, the human relationships in this movie, they're a lot almost better than I remember, because I remembered the silliness of the film, and it's a very silly film. Yes. But such a well-made film, and it would not work if it wasn't for the great characters and the performances.
Sure. Oh, of course. Yeah. It's extremely well written. Well acted with real care and consideration, and they wanted it is very much Spaced, but it is again it's its own thing. I don't think that you need to necessarily be a Spaced fan in order to like this movie.
No, you don't need to have seen it.
But or to even like it, because it is. There are differences, even though that we get similar kind of feel here and there with it, of course. But I still think that Spaced is very much his own thing. Yeah. And I can see Spaced being perhaps something that's a bit more out there. You see what I mean? In certain ways, where this feels obviously zombies, so horror and splatter and all that. But I think that it's not as surreal, as Spaced
It's more accessible to
absolutely.
yeah.
I think so.
And I think it's why it done fairly well in other countries as well.
Yeah.
And it's definitely a cult hit in America.
Yeah.
Which Space might be now, but Space would have got that after Shaun of the Dead.
I can't imagine at the time that Space was coming out in the late 90s, early 2000s, that it would have been a hit in America.
No, I think it's people have watched Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz since, and then gone back, and then they've got the humour more because they've got the humour from the movies.
Yeah, exactly. I would have thought that would be the way around it would have gone.
But I love the Britishness of it. Like you mentioned, like the whole going to the Winchester and then that pub. And then the references to American movies that I grew up with.
Yeah.
So for people of our age who've grown up like us, who my late teens, early 20s when this came out would have been even in the pub, going home, putting late night telly on and watching a zombie film. Yeah. So this film is that.
Well, I mean, we've got we have to be honest about the kind of not only the characters themselves, but the guys who made this movie. They are very much like us in like what they like, right? Yeah. We like very similar things. Where they are older than us, they're sort of like the generation-ish before us. They're 10, 15 years older. But the way they basically consume the media that they consume is very, very similar to themselves. I'm sure if they weren't famous people, like they would be doing. They would still be loving, into these kind of things, and So,
but back then as well, there was more of a crossover with that 10, 15 years gap. Yeah, we had 4 TV channels, 5 TV channels, and we'd go to a video store and rent video. So we were actually watching the same things, even though we were that age apart. Whereas now there's so many different mediums. 5-year difference. You're watching different shows. You're doing, but back then, even the title, Shaun of the Dead, from Dawn of the Dead, a film I'd seen before this came out. Yeah. So I got the reference to the title straight away, which I think most people of my age then, I'd have been. When this came out, 23.
Yeah. Is that right? Yeah, 20. I was 22, I think, at the time. Yeah. But again, you're right. If those are the kind of things you like, see, this is the point. Like we clearly are very much into the similar kind of movies and stuff that they are into.
Yeah.
So we get those kind of references, and there are loads of other people that would as well. But that's not a universal thing. I think the universal appeal that comes from this movie is just. That it's very well written in the sense of like we're talking about the drama and everything and the comedy itself, the broadness of certain elements to the comedy. Like if you don't know the references, if you don't know the stuff, you can still enjoy it because it's still funny. It's not sitting in its own bubble thinking it's smarter than everyone else. It's not a pretentious movie.
I actually met my parents last night and they never saw this when it came out.
Right. Didn't
watch Space. Don't think they'd like Space. But now. After watching it these years later for this podcast, I think they'd enjoy it.
Yeah,
I think that especially the parent characters.
Absolutely.
But at the time, because of the gore and that, I was like, they probably wouldn't. But I think in this 20 years, movies have got gorier, and this has always been a 15 certificate, so it shouldn't be a 18 or and I think that now. I think they'd enjoy it. I think they would have enjoyed it then, but now I realise they'd enjoy it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I know your parents have seen horror movies. They don't mind horror movies.
It's their fault. Apart from Ghostbusters, it's their fault I got into horror movies.
Exactly. So, I can't imagine them being that bothered by this film from the gore elements. And like you say, and point that making about like the drama in there, though it's not the focal point of the film, it is something that a lot of people, especially critics, picked up at the time and were like, that's really good.
Yeah.
Like the Bill Nighy character is often seen by film critics as being the star of the movie, as being he's like the show stealer ultimately.
Well, it was that and kind of Love Actually that boosted his career around the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he'd been a character actor for years, and then this sort of propelled him.
But he is great in it, that whole thing is very emotional. And they do this in all of their films, really. I think they have that element to them, that they, they're not just like. Maybe, but it's not Ghostbusters in that respect, right? Yeah. It's something. There's more to it. Like
it's not bottom.
It's not bottom.
And that's the thing, because when the emotional scenes happen, it's not a straight jump. It works because with the humour, it's building.
Yeah.
There's reality in these people. And also the movie is more or less starts off a straight comedy and then builds.
Yeah.
And that last act is pretty much all horror.
Yes.
When you look at it.
Yeah, when you get to the end.
Yeah.
Not the end, but before we get to the end, the finale. It is, like you say, it is very much. We have removed ourselves now from the comedy.
Yeah, and there's a few real violent bits.
Yeah.
That,
I suppose, if you don't like that sort of thing, probably quite shocking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's why horror fans of this movie.
Yeah.
They don't see, and also it's not taking the piss out of these films. It's a tribute to them.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's not.
Another reason my words.
Yeah. And there's been loads of zombie comedies, and this wasn't the first. But I'd say there's two great zombie comedies, or zomcoms.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one was made 19 years before, Return of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
But they're two very different zombie comedies, I feel.
Very much so.
But in the nearly 2 decades, there hadn't been another really good one, I think. And that's why this film is so fresh. And 20 years later, it's still it's still a very enjoyable film. The only things that have dated in it really are you see them smoking in pubs and there's a massive phone book in the background. That's all I could pick up on.
Probably. Yeah, obviously the things that they've dated obviously are the little elements to our lives that have changed. They're which
would be in any film.
Sure. There's not any mobile. Is there? Oh no, there are mobile phones in it. But no smartphones, obviously.
Yeah. The main characters playing video games all day. That's still relevant. That's still happening. And that's another appeal for the film, because I'm not big into games.
No, me neither.
But when this came out, Resident Evil, which you mentioned earlier, was huge, and that could have got people through the door. Because it done well, this movie, didn't it? I mean, it didn't.
Oh God, yeah, it's certainly a hit. I'm sure it would have. I mean, the budget would have been very small. I reckon, like 5 million, 6 million, something like that.
It looks so good, doesn't it? It really.
Yeah.
Not just the effects, but the way it's shot, it doesn't look cheap.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, Edgar Wright's always very good at that. His talent is being able to make things, like a Spielberg, being able to make things look much more grander and bigger than they are. The budget would suggest.
Yeah.
So, oh God, it would have made so much more than that. He must have been like, I don't know. I have no idea. Maybe 50 mil. I don't know. I'm not going to look. I'm going to stop. I'm going to put my smartphone away. But I mean, the fact that you've got it back for a 20th anniversary. There wasn't a sequel, but it's part of the Cornetto trilogy. So they've done Hot Fuzz a few years later. Yeah, Hot Fuzz and then The World's End. Which are both great. Just mentioning the trilogy, I love them all. I'm a massive fan of all three of them. Hot Fuzz is, if I haven't pushed for a favourite, that is my favourite, with Shaun the Dead in the second place. Yeah. But that kind of makes sense. I mean, it's the second one. They've basically just, we've got the same stuff, just more finessed, as far as I'm concerned.
Edgar Wright and I think Simon Pegg did write a straight sequel to it. Do you know what it was going to be called?
No.
From Dusk Till Shaun.
Oh, okay. Very good.
That's what he said in an interview. Might have been a joke, but I'd be all over that.
Yeah. Well,
love a pun in a title.
No, it's a great film. It's an absolutely brilliant comedy horror film. Obviously, one of the best comedy horror films ever. So,
I mean, could it be the best British comedy horror film? So that's up there.
Very, very possible.
Carry On Screaming's good.
Yeah.
But generally he's good. I don't know why I say it like that.
Well, the best Carry On.
Yeah, if not the best. But no, this is a great movie, and I'm guessing a lot of you wouldn't have seen it on the big screen. No. Some of you would be too young.
Yeah.
And some of you who are a bit older might have
just gone, no, I don't watch that one.
No. What's that Channel 4 rubbish? So give it a go. When is this being shown?
Oh, is that the 17th? I think it's a Thursday. It's 7:30. Yeah.
Day before Ghostbusters.
It's the day before Ghostbusters, so you've got a lot of scares.
Is it just the one showing of that one?
Yeah, it is just the one.
Book your tickets now online.
Yeah, exactly.
You go to the King Street Cinema Ipswich.
20th anniversary, Shaun the Dead, rated 15.
Yeah.
17th of October, 7:30, King Street Cinema.
Yeah, and find online. Book up first. Get the good seats. I recommend Rowe Foot Room. I don't know why I said that, because I don't know half the people sitting there. That's fine. Anyway, yes. So we're going to talk now, not a comedy, but another. No. Is it an anniversary screening of this one?
It is not. I don't believe so. It's a restoration, so there's a 4K restoration of the wonderful Watership Down from 1978.
Yeah. So a movie that I thought I'm going to rewatch one of these before we talk about it.
Yeah.
So I rewatched Shaun the Dead.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen this for years.
No.
And I will be along because you're showing it on a Saturday afternoon. There's a few shows of this, isn't there?
There are. There's the 25th, so Friday, Saturday 26th, and Thursday 31st.
Yeah.
So Halloween showing.
Yeah. This is a film that I stand by is a kids' film, a good kids' film that can be enjoyed by everybody.
Absolutely.
Controversial because it's dark.
Yes.
It's now a PG.
It is. Was a U for many years.
Yeah.
But it's now PG. It's probably been PG again for got to be probably 10 years at least.
Yeah.
At this point.
I've got a DVD of it, which is U, but it's old DVD, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
I reckon I haven't seen it for well over a decade.
Really?
I remember. Look at the film, great, brilliant voice cast.
Amazing voice cast.
That Shaun the Dead, I mentioned there's a connection. If anyone's seen the sitcom Ever Decreasing Circles, the mum from Shaun the Dead,
Penelope Wilton.
Was married in Ever Decreasing Circles to Richard Briers,
who plays the character of Pfeiffer in this what lovely Watership Down.
That was this month's Andy's Tedious Link. So Watership Down.
Rabbits, animation. Does anyone not know of it? I mean, this is the thing. It's got to be considered an absolute British animation classic. There can't really be anyone that has not heard of it. Maybe not seen it, but certainly everybody has heard of it. Yeah. It's a movie that gets shown to children generally throughout the years, even to this day. I was shown it as a child. I have heard throughout the generations. Friends of mine who have children show their children Watership Down. It's not a film that that gets forgotten about and left for a generation. It's constantly there.
Yeah.
So to think of it as something that people need necessarily being told of just seems insane to me. If you know what I mean, like it's a part of the fabric of this country, is it not? At this point, I
think so. I have no kids, so I don't know the new.
Me neither. But for all the people I know, people that do have children.
And obviously, it's based on Richard Adams' which novel, must still be a popular one.
It's got to be, right? I mean, that's not a children's book. That's very much a adult because of the way it's written, not necessarily because of the themes and everything, but just the way it's written is very much for someone who's had many years of reading, because it's quite a hefty novel, even though it's not necessarily that long.
Yeah,
it's
heavy going.
Heavy going, I'd say. Yeah,
and you got the
clever, smart.
Everyone knows Bright Eyes.
Bright Eyes, the song by Art Garfunkel. Was it written by I'm forgetting?
Wasn't it written by the guy who made the Wombles?
Mike Batt, yes, Mike Batt, yes, is the guy who made the Wombles, and wrote the song. He didn't write the music for the score for the film. That was mostly Angela Morley, who brilliant, just absolutely fantastic. But Mike Batt did the song Bright Eyes, which was a #1 hit for Art Garfunkel. If anyone I don't know if you remember a kids' TV show in the early 90s called Dreamstone. He did the song for that, and it sounds so similar.
Sounds familiar, but I can't remember this.
Right. So if you heard the theme to that, you would be like, "That's Bright Eyes." Oh, okay. It's so
he done an AC/DC.
It's still a great song as well, but yes, it's very much like Bright Eyes.
Okay.
But music's fantastic. Like you say, the acting, the voice acting is some of the best, I think, of any piece of animation. I mean, we could just name some names, like a John Hurt, Richard Briers, Zero Morstel, who is in the Producers. He plays Kia, the seagull, French seagull, but he's like the main guy in
Producers. Yeah.
Roy Kinnear.
Legend.
Great. I mean, I think we bring him up every now and then. The conversation.
He's
Nigel Hawthorne. Oh yeah. Michael Hordern. Michael bloody hoarding. Just one
we should film this episode because you're getting really into
Ralph Richardson. I mean, that to name a few. Classic, brilliant British actors. So you just can't go wrong if you're interested in some really good voice acting.
Yeah. And was this one at the time a big hit?
I don't know, big hit, but I think it did well.
Yeah.
You did mention controversy to it, I suppose, because this is the interesting thing. I was speaking to my partner the other day about this, and I think I probably mentioned it to you too. Growing up, to me, this was never anything that seemed strange. Me watching it, I never thought that was like, I shouldn't be watching this. I was never scared by it. It was an emotional thing, certainly, but I was never like put off by it, and I watched it again and again and again and again, multiple times. I knew loads of people who watched it, other kids, similar to myself, the same thing. It wasn't until I got older that I started, as a grown-up, started to hear people talking about it as something like, it's traumatizing children.
Yeah.
My kids I know of kids that have seen it and have just, grown-ups now saying, I was absolutely terrified by it as a child. I'm not saying they're lying, but that's not my experience of it as a child.
Because I knew one kid who was scared by it, but that kid was scared by a lot of things and a lot of different. We were all had little things that might not seem scary, but would scare us as a kid.
Yeah.
So I didn't think anything of it, and I'd put this in. What was the? There was it the Dark Cauldron, the Black? Is it
Black Cauldron?
No scarier than that.
Yeah, absolutely agreed.
And no scarier than say
Secret of Nim.
Yeah, there's bits in The Fox and the Hound that and I didn't see it as any worse. And it's this thing of it's just sort of there's like the meme of. This looks like a nice Easter film. I'll show it to kids. Yes, you should. That's not a joke.
Yeah. There's nothing about this movie that I would say is, I think it for the people that are very much in this camp of this is not for children, this is traumatizing kids if you show it to children, you're a bad person for showing it to kids. You are playing down to the children. You are making the children you think your kids are stupid when they're not.
Yeah.
Kids are bright. They're not idiots. They know it's a cartoon.
Yeah.
This is a very big point, I think, of the film, is that when it came out, a lot of people reviewing it, though obviously recognizing that there were some dark themes to it, were completely fine for it being for children because they didn't talk down to children. Yeah. Right? That wasn't really a thing that, and I'm not saying people do so much nowadays. I'm sure but there's certainly an element to that where it's like, we have to protect the kids constantly from every single.
And I will say that now it's a PG. Things are different now. Now you've got 12 and 12A. I see 12A as what PG used to be, and PG now is almost like what you used to be, because a PG years ago, they going into or renting it when it was renting days, you might not have been able, if you was really young, you might not have been able to get a PG unless your parents were with you. But now they can just stream a PG. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's gone up a certificate, but not in my eyes. It's the same as what it was.
I can't see it. Not in your bright eyes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I've got a mate as well who claims that they read. And this is ridiculous. And Stand By, we argued about it. That when they went to give it the certificate, they didn't even watch it. They stamped a U on it because it was a cartoon. I'm like, that's utter nonsense.
Yeah, that is nonsense. But that's not what they do.
It's not what they do. And there was a bit of controversy about that, and they gave reasons why it was given the U certificate, didn't they?
I will say, based on what I mentioned before, that what your friend may be thinking of and just simplifying to the extreme is that the people that were watching the movie would have gone, kids aren't stupid. They know it's a cartoon. They'll be fine.
Yeah.
Put a U on it.
Yeah.
That's it, right? Yeah. It's not playing down to kids.
Yeah.
It's basically saying that they know what it is. It's okay.
And if they just done that with cartoons, we would be discussing was it Fitz the cat and how that traumatised people. Is that what that was called? And then that was an 18, probably 15.
Sure, that's for sexual references and drug use.
Yeah, no, but they would have done the same thing and just stamped the U on it.
And that was and that's why it gets an 18. And if you're going to have certification, which I think that they should be to a certain degree, which is generally I think is like stuff that's good for everybody and stuff that's just for adults.
Yeah.
And obviously something like Fritz the Cat is for adults.
Yeah. And for people with no sense of humour.
Oh, indeed,
it's not funny.
because it's awful.
Yeah, it's bad. Well, I've seen it, obviously. So, yeah, I mean, it's good that it's still talked about and still shown. And if I had kids, this would be a film I definitely want to show them, because it's part of growing up to see darker things. And this is definitely a stepping stone to watching more adult films.
But it's got really important themes in it about life and death. I mean, these are the kind of things that I just think, yes, this is beautifully well-made, structured storytelling for everybody, right? This to me, it's not a film that there's somebody that shouldn't be able to get something out of it. I mean, some people might find it boring or whatever, or, if depending on who, the way you feel about things. But in my opinion, it's not. This is one of the great pieces of animation ever made. And again, people could say, oh, the animation is a little old hat and stuff like that, blah, blah, blah. But it looks wonderful. It does. It truly looks amazing. Yeah. And like I say, the music's great. Everything about it for me is just great. And it's got funny moments as well as the sad and
people forget the humour in it. That's true. But also, you got to think, when it was made, did you say 78?
78, yeah.
This was when animation, like Disney was on a right down then. The 70s and 80s, they weren't until like The Little Mermaid, really, that Disney was making successful films. So this came out, and it might have filled the gap for animation that's accessible to everybody. I mean, it's like... films like Aristocrats, would that have been around that time?
Yeah, I remember slightly early. No, 77,
that's very kiddie.
Yeah,
parents taking their kids to see that might have been bored, whereas with this, they'd have got more out of it. And I think that's why people, it's a rewatchable film for many people. I mean, a lot of, I did go to some of the Disney films that were shown last year, but more the classics. Films from that era, I'm not that bothered about. Whereas this, I would definitely want to see on the big screen. Right. The only 70s Disney one I really like is Robin Hood, because it's brilliant.
Robin Hood's good.
But there wasn't, and it's not like now where you've got Pixar, DreamWorks, all this illumination stuff. So this was something quite different, I think, when it came out.
Absolutely, and a British production. So, and at that time, certainly weren't many animated films made in Britain. And I think it took a while to be made. I think a good number of years before it was released.
So
two or
project.
three. Yeah, big project. Yeah,
and they went on to make afterwards Plague Dogs.
Plague Dogs as well. Yeah, which is anher one of the novel and same guy.
Talking Dogs.
Talking Dogs, much darker, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that was always a PG.
Because and I think darker in the sense that it has very adult themes is not the correct word but what it's about, the plot itself, what's going on in it, is a lot more sophisticated and darker in the sense of what human beings how they can behave.
But still one that kids could get something different out of.
Absolutely.
It's still that adventure story.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it's something that kids shouldn't see at all. But it is one that I see more of reasoning why certain kids might be scared by it, or trauma, made to feel a lot sad, emotional. And also might get the better of them.
The title of that one implies it could traumatise you.
Exactly.
Whereas Watership Down.
I mean, I'm going to be very honest. Watership Down is a film of hope.
Yeah,
it's a story of hope, and it ends in a beautifully melancholic but wonderfully happy way, in the sense that we know that the rabbits will be fine. Sorry for the spoilers there. Yeah, but Plague Dogs isn't that.
No. What? No. If you've seen the ending, you get my reaction to that.
Yeah,
they were fine. But Watership Down, free screenings.
Yes,
book your tickets now. Anything else you want to add? Because we've been ranting for a bit.
No, I think that's So showings are just a reminder: Friday 25th, 6 o'clock; Saturday 26th, matinee 2:30, and again matinee on Thursday the 31st as well, 2:30.
2:30, yes. So you get yourselves to those. Bring the kids.
Yes, absolutely.
And they might want you to buy them a pet rabbit. afterwards.
Maybe.
Which I want a pet rabbit.
Ah.
I'd call it Malcolm. Yeah.
Fair enough.
And just briefly, we've got 2 new films that you are showing very soon.
New film, yes.
I went to Fright Fest this year in London.
You did.
And these 2 films were shown there, so I have seen them. Strange Darling.
Yes.
Which you've got, it's upside down there, 7:30 on the 11th.
Friday.
So hopefully this podcast will be out before then. If it isn't, sorry. Strange Darling, it was at Fright Fest, so it could be seen as a horror. Thriller, more, I'd say. Yeah. Lots of twists and turns, really well shot, really well acted. It's one that, as I say, lots of twists and turns. So I can't really say much about. Yeah. Violent, there is humour there. It will grab you from the start and it won't let go for the 90 odd minutes. Yeah. I recommend this. It's definitely good, one that if it wasn't showing the same time as you're showing The Thing, I would see it again.
Well, this is it, right? Yeah. So if you're not interested in Strange Darling, which you should be, you can go see The Thing.
Yeah, on the VHS Be Kind Rewind.
Rewind, yes.
And that's 7
days. We talked about The Thing.
We did in the previous episode. I'm sure you've all listened to it. If not, go back. Yeah. You can hear it on Spotify, YouTube, and now Amazon Music. We're on all 3 now. Yeah. So, Strange Darling, I recommend it.
18 certificate.
Yes, it is.
Lots of violence.
Yeah, and another 18 certificate movie that you're showing soonish.
Well, yes, 26th at 7:30, so Saturday, and on Sunday 27th again 7:30.
So you could do a double bill. You could watch Watership Down.
Yeah.
Have a break, get some snacks, and then come and see Substance.
That is true. You could do that.
Yeah. So sort of a comeback movie in a way for Debbie Moore. This is another dark one.
Funny though, maybe.
There's humour in it. Yeah. Is very there is
dark humour, maybe. Yeah. They call it black humour.
Yeah.
Comedy.
Yes, and
satire.
Yeah. And great cast. Dennis Quaid's in it.
Brilliant.
Up and coming actress who I can never remember the name of, who I've always thought is good, but she's been in films I haven't particularly liked, like Drive-By Dolls and.
She was in a TV show.
That Kindness, the Kindness one. What was that called?
Yeah, Kinds of Kindness. Which you didn't like particularly.
I did not.
Okay. A lot of people did. I was quite.
Did you like that?
I didn't. I wasn't like crazy about it. I'm a big fan of the filmmaker. So this one was.
Yes, because he made. Was it he? The same director done. What's the one with Emma Stone?
Yeah, Poor Things.
Yeah. Which this actress was in as well. She played
the
other.
I
can't remember her name.
Yeah. I can't remember her name either. But yes, but certainly very much a star in the making, shall we say?
Is it obvious that I'm trying really hard to do an episode without Google?
Yeah. That's it. We're on the fly.
Yeah. Substance though, it's another one that these 2 movies I don't want to spoil anything.
Yeah.
But this one is it's about aging really, and Demi Moore plays an aging actress, who doesn't want to accept getting older and does something about it.
Yeah. So it's like a Faustian type thing, where she's like making a deal with the devil kind of thing.
Kind of, yes, yeah. Demi Moore's superb in it. I recently read her autobiography actually, and it touches on stuff like this. So I can see why she wanted to do it.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, the last film I can remember seeing her in, you'll probably point out that there's been some since, there must have been, was the second Charlie's Angels film, which is 20 odd years.
Have been.
Yeah, I mean, it has been.
But I haven't, I don't think I've seen a film with her in for a long time.
Yeah, I don't think she might have done TV work. I don't really watch TV.
I'm sure she's made some movies, but she is a name obviously from our childhood.
Yeah.
Huge star for many years, and then sort of just in a weird, not in a weird way, and sadly in a quite common way for a lot of female actors, sort of just dropped off when you get to a certain age, sadly. It's sort of like, there's no work for you anymore.
Yeah, you go from playing the teenager to playing the mom.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's,
or the grandmother.
There was someone recently who literally in 5-year gap, I noticed that they'd done that. They played. They were the mum. I can't think of it. Well, I'm not going to.
That's fine.
But yeah, it does happen.
No. This is very much the case where you go, there's someone playing being young, to all of a sudden now playing, like you say, the mum, or just someone that's a bit sort of like, I've seen it. I've seen it all. I have.
Yeah. There'll be more coming out of the Brat Pack.
Yeah.
An example. This isn't who I was thinking of. But if you watch The Breakfast Club and then watch Short Circuit, what was made a year or two later, Ali Sheedy.
Ali Sheedy. Right. So Ali Sheedy is a teenager, not just what was she meant to be, 16, 17 and that, and then all of a sudden she's got her own place, she's got loads of cats, she's come across as like a cat lady, but not old. You'll think, well, at least I was when I was young, I was like, wow, she's quite like, grown up. It's like, but you say it's 1986. Yeah, she's not, is she? A
year or two later.
Yeah. I mean, I she's like 23 or 4 or something.
When I was a kid, I don't think I ever connected it was the same person.
Yeah. Well, I didn't see Breakfast Club until I was older anyway, so I didn't even. But still sure. So I think loads of times. Yeah,
I'd have been. I might have seen Breakfast Club when I was in primary school, not very early high school.
No, I didn't see it until I was in my 20s.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that might be why I like it more than you do.
Yeah, maybe
because I saw it that young, and therefore
you got that connection. With
and I've got that tainted look on it. But yeah, Demi Moore, brilliant performance. They all are in this. And I would say one thing that has been mentioned. It's
been doing well, hasn't it?
Doing well. It lasts 2 hours 20 minutes, but my God, it doesn't feel it. It flies by. And there's a lot going on. It's very stylish, but in a good way.
Yes.
And this is definitely one that I think will be remembered. It's a movie that it's got elements of horror films that I've grown up liking.
Body horror,
yeah. But nothing that mainstream. You know what I mean? And visually it looks great. I don't want to spoil much, but it reminds me. Body horror is
really not.
Yeah. I'm sorry. But body horror is something that it's there, but it's not a straight. It's not like Society.
Right.
But there are bits in it, and it's wow.
I've read a couple of reviews, not by professionals, but from just people online saying that it does get a bit Society.
Oh, it does, but it doesn't. Do you know what I mean? Visually, it looks that way, but it's a different film.
Yeah, I'll say.
You know what I mean? And when
later on, it sort of gets quite.
But it's nice to actually go in knowing it's a body horror, because I know of people who were like they saw the trailer and didn't realise it was even a horror.
Yeah, sure.
And didn't enjoy it. You've got to know it's a horror going in.
Yeah,
I think so.
I agree. Genre movies should be very much expressing what they are.
I mean, the clue for me was it was a Fright Fest.
So it could be a horror movie, certainly, but it could be a psychological sort of movie. I don't know. Does it have that kind of elements to it as well as the body horror? I mean, they often do. I mean, if you think of Cronenberg's films, they're always very psychological.
The closest I can think to compare is Cronenberg.
Sure. Yeah.
But with the directors put their own stamp on this. Yeah. Who done? Was it Revenge?
Yeah, Revenge. I forget the name of the lady. She's a French filmmaker, I believe. And Revenge. I didn't see it, and I keep meaning to. In fact, because I want to see it before I watch The Substance, just to get an idea.
See, I thought I'd seen it, but I haven't. I've seen another film.
It's a revenge, classic in the classic style of you did a wrong 'un to me, and I'm going to get you back kind of movie, which are often very fun.
Yeah. So this is. One of the films of the year for me, I'd say.
Oh, wow! There you go.
But both these movies are really, both very adult. Both, I think it's good to see both of these get a bigger release in the festivals. They deserve it, definitely. But often movies like this, because they're darker, violent, different, and get overlooked. And it's good to see you've got them, and that people are enjoying them. Enjoying might be the wrong word, but
sure, but having interest in them, want to see them, well, enjoying is the correct word. You can enjoy things on many different levels, but sure, certainly.
And some brilliant performances in both.
Well, there we go. I mean, what more do you want, really?
Exactly.
From these kind of things, obviously, both 18 certificates, so it's for the adults.
Yeah.
But yes, very much looking forward to putting these on.
Yeah, there's a lot this month, and don't forget there is another podcast for October films that's already out. Yeah. So go and have a listen to that, because you've got Indiana Jones, Back to the Future. There's the Joe Dante double bill. We discuss all those in detail. So there was literally too much to put in an episode this month. So we've done 2.
Yeah.
And Halloween show.
And there's Halloween, which I'm just mentioning Friday 25th, 8:30, and Halloween itself Thursday 31st at 7:30. So get yourself down to either one of those or both.
Yes.
That again has a 4K restoration, so it's going to look really, beautiful. Yes. Not that it didn't, but it's going to look even more beautiful.
Yeah, gotta love Halloween. And a good mix of films for the Halloween season this year. Yeah. Some different ones and some new and old, which I like.
Exactly.
So get yourselves to King Street Cinema. Follow on the socials. There's the Instagram, there's Facebook, King Street Cinema Ipswich, and the website where you can book all the tickets. Follow, and YouTube now, which this is going out on the YouTube channels. So follow that. It's brilliant, because Dan's putting up all the trailers for the film show, and I've hit the follow, and I look, and there's a lot on there, and it's good. There's some good shiz on there.
It certainly is.
And accidentally, by me clicking a button, we're on Amazon Music as well now.
Yes.
So get on that if you are. So follow us. Any comments, we'll talk back to you. You can do that through Spotify or any of them, and anything you want to criticise us or big us up.
Yeah, you can do either.
Like talking to you guys. So I've been Andy, and you've been James.
Salam.
And we'll be back with another episode very soon.
Goodbye.
There you go.